Welcome, anime enthusiasts, to another thrilling recap of your favorite series. Make sure you grab your favorite meal, whatever satisfies your taste buds, because this recap is meant to be savored. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The anime Inuyashiki Last Hero introduces us to the main character, Inuyashiki Ichirou, a middle-aged salaryman who feels trapped in a monotonous life and an aging body. He goes through the motions of his workday routines, feeling disconnected from his family and unfulfilled in his existence. In an attempt to bring some excitement to his family, Inuyashiki takes them to their new modest home, but his wife and children are unimpressed and show little appreciation. This further emphasizes his isolation and insignificance in their lives. In a desperate bid to seek solace, Inuyashiki visits the doctor, only to receive devastating news. He is diagnosed with stomach cancer and is given a mere 3 months to live. Overwhelmed by fear and the desire to share his plight with his family, he tries to reach out to them, but they ignore his calls, deepening his sense of abandonment. One evening, while walking his dog in a park on a hill, Inuyashiki's emotions reach a breaking point, and he breaks down and cries. It is at this vulnerable moment that a mysterious explosion of extraterrestrial origin occurs, engulfing both Inuyashiki and a young man standing nearby. To Inuyashiki's astonishment, the explosion replaces his frail and deteriorating body with an incredibly powerful, electromechanical cyborg form. While he now possesses immense physical abilities, his appearance remains outwardly human. Initially bewildered by this transformation, he gradually discovers his newfound powers when he saves a homeless man from a group of violent teenagers. Empowered by his mechanical body, Inuyashiki's internal electronics enable him to identify and expose the perpetrators, making their actions public. He realizes that despite his cyborg nature, he still thinks and feels like a human, and his compassion drives him to use his abilities to protect the innocent and dispense justice. I have talked about Inuyashiki, but remember, he wasn't the only one who was in that explosion. The young man named Hiro Shishigami, a high school student, who also underwent a transformation similar to Inuyashiki. Hiro notices the absence of his friend Naoyuki Andu from school, and decides to visit him. During their meeting, Hiro reveals to Naoyuki that he is no longer human and demonstrates some of his extraordinary powers. Initially, Naoyuki is impressed by Hiro's ability, but his admiration turns to horror when Hiro causes chaos in the streets by manipulating cars and causing them to crash. Naoyuki realizes that these powers are not mere tricks but something much more sinister. Hiro unveils his cyborg body to Naoyuki, attempting to persuade him to return to school, and offering to kill the student who had previously beaten him up. However, Naoyuki becomes increasingly fearful of Hiro's mental state and the extent of his powers. He senses the danger lurking within Hiro. After leaving Naoyuki's house, Hiro randomly selects a house and callously kills its occupants using an invisible beam, reveling in the feeling of being alive. As he prepares to leave, the daughter of the family arrives home, and Hiro threatens her life, causing her to scream in fear. Inuyashiki, who possesses enhanced hearing, picks up on the girl's distress and follows the sound in his mind, driving toward her location. He arrives too late to save her, discovering her lifeless body. Overwhelmed with grief and anger, Inuyashiki vows to seek justice for her. Just as Inuyashiki mourns the loss of another innocent life, Hiro confronts him. Without hesitation, Hiro shoots Inuyashiki in the head, seemingly ending his existence. However, to Hiro's astonishment, Inuyashiki miraculously regenerates, standing defiantly at the doorway. Hiro, surprised by Inuyashiki's recovery, uses the jets in his back to fly away, leaving Inuyashiki bewildered and searching for answers. Inuyashiki acknowledges that Hiro has undergone the same metamorphosis as him but struggles to comprehend his motivations and the darkness that consumes him. Meanwhile, Hiro pays another visit to Naoyuki, who remains adamant about not returning to school. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki witnesses a group of thugs dragging a young man into an alley. Driven by his sense of justice, he confronts the thugs and defeats them solely with his enhanced physical strength. In the midst of this, he hears the desperate cries of people trapped inside a burning building. Inspired by witnessing Hiro's ability to fly, Inuyashiki desperately tries to invoke the flying mechanism he observed. Singing the Astro Boy theme song, he manages to take off but struggles to control the jets. Eventually, he arrives at the scene of the fire and successfully rescues those trapped inside, reaffirming his commitment to protect and save lives. In another instance, Hiro convinces Naoyuki to return to school, but when bullies target Naoyuki once again, Hiro intervenes and forces them to back off, using his powers to intimidate them. However, witnessing Hiro's violent actions, Naoyuki realizes the true extent of his friend's transformation and the darkness that accompanies it. Naoyuki decides that he can no longer be friends with someone who kills and steals, causing Hiro to walk away. That evening, Inuyashiki discovers his remarkable healing power when he revives a cat that had been tragically run over. Witnessing the life he can restore, Inuyashiki is filled with a renewed sense of purpose and hope. On the other hand, Hiro continues his descent into darkness as he enters yet another random house and callously kills all of its occupants. A Yakuza member was sexually assaulted by his boss, Samejima, as punishment for a woman's death due to a drug overdose. Meanwhile, Fumino Inao, a young woman working in a cafe, joyfully announces her engagement to her boyfriend, Satoru. However, her happiness is short-lived as she is abducted by Samejima's men while on her way home. Fumino is injected with drugs with the intention of subjecting her to sexual assault, but she manages to wound Samejima and escape, making her way back to her apartment where Satoru awaits. Before they can take any action, Samejima and his men barge into their apartment to reclaim Fumino. Samejima begins to choke Satoru, and in a critical moment, Inuyashiki arrives at the scene. Inuyashiki swiftly disables Samejima's men, but Samejima pulls out a gun and shoots Inuyashiki in the head, causing him to collapse. When Inuyashiki regains consciousness, he finds himself alone in the apartment with a lifeless Satoru. However, utilizing his healing power, Inuyashiki manages to revive Satoru, breathing life back into him. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki traces Samejima's location and flies to a Yakuza meeting where he confronts Samejima, calling him out for his vile actions. In a display of his immense strength, Inuyashiki defeats Samejima, unleashing his pent-up anger and frustration. As the rest of the Yakuza members fire a barrage of bullets at Inuyashiki, his cyborg body's self-defense mechanism activates, unleashing powerful laser beams from his power pack. The beams blind and maim the Yakuza members, leaving them permanently crippled. Inuyashiki, driven by his sense of justice and compassion, then embarks on a mission to rescue Fumino. Tracking her down, he saves her from captivity, reuniting her with Satoru and restoring hope to their lives. The next day, media reports circulate about the attack on the Kudenkai crime syndicate and the mysterious home invasion in the Suganami ward, where no bullets were found despite evidence of firearm damage. The public begins to speculate about the identities of the culprits. At school, Shishigami and Naoyuki become the subjects of suspicion among their peers, who suspect their involvement in the deaths of the bullies. Naoyuki contemplates reporting Shishigami, but finds himself unable to do so. As he reads about the miraculous recoveries of people with serious illnesses, he briefly suspects Shishigami but dismisses the thought, considering the possibility of others possessing similar powers. In a desperate attempt to discover the truth, Naoyuki screams out that he is going to be killed, hoping for a response. To his surprise, Inuyashiki arrives at his door, revealing his true identity as the last hero. Naoyuki, determined to put a stop to Shishigami's reign of terror, pledges to assist Inuyashiki, even if it means resorting to lethal measures. Meanwhile, Shin Watanabe, a classmate of Shishigami, confesses her feelings to him. In a rare display of gratitude, Shishigami thanks her for her confession. However, the weight of his actions and the impact they have on those around him begin to take their toll. Later, Naoyuki urges Inuyashiki to test his powers, but Inuyashiki struggles to control them, highlighting the learning curve he faces in harnessing his abilities effectively. In a poignant scene, Shishigami's mother reveals that she has been diagnosed with cancer and has only a few months to live. Determined to save her, Shishigami uses his powers to cure her illness. The next morning, his mother awakens to find herself miraculously healed. Inspired by this success, Shishigami vows to cease his killing spree, driven by the desire to protect his mother. However, the media's report of a breakthrough in the household murder cases leads the police to surround Shishigami's home, attempting to apprehend him. After managing to escape from the clutches of the police, Shishigami seeks refuge at Shin's house, finding solace and support in her presence. Meanwhile, Naoyuki informs Inuyashiki that Shishigami has integrated his mobile phone into his electronic system, prompting Inuyashiki to do the same. They begin testing the communication distance, with Inuyashiki even flying as high as an orbiting satellite, showcasing the extent of his powers. While laying low over the next few days, Shishigami discovers that people on an online forum are insulting his mother. Overwhelmed by shame and haunted by the relentless media scrutiny, his mother tragically takes her own life. This devastating loss shatters Shishigami, plunging him into a deep state of grief and anger. Consumed by vengeance, Shishigami goes to his father's house, only to find the media gathered outside. In a fit of rage, he kills the reporters in front of his father, exacting revenge for the pain and suffering inflicted upon his family. Fueled by a thirst for retribution, Shishigami turns his attention to the users who had posted insults. Using his extraordinary hacking ability, He infiltrates their computers and delivers lethal shots through their screens, effectively eliminating those responsible for tarnishing his mother's memory. Overwhelmed by the recent events and burdened by the weight of his actions, Shishigami seeks solace and refuge at Shin's house. He is haunted by a flashback where he waits for a train in a crowded underground station, witnessing a middle-aged man deliberately stepping in front of it. In a moment of vulnerability, Shishigami confesses to Shin that he is the killer responsible for the deaths that have plagued the city. However, Shin refuses to believe this revelation, unable to reconcile the gentle and caring person she knows with the actions he describes. Shishigami recounts the railway incident, admitting to the pleasure he felt when erasing a life and expressing how alive he feels by taking the lives of others. Despite his admission, Shin remains steadfast in her refusal to accept that he is not human. In a remarkable display of his powers, Shishigami carries Shin into the sky, defying the boundaries of human limitations. Rather than fear for her life, Shin pleads with him to stay by her side and the side of her grandmother, demonstrating her unwavering love and desire to see the good in him. Moved by Shin's unconditional love, Shishigami experiences a change of heart. He decides to use his abilities to save the lives of people who are on the brink of death. The daily acts of healing and selfless actions bring joy to Shin's life, and they spend the next 2 months leading a seemingly happy existence. However, their happiness is threatened when the police manage to track down Shishigami. A police SAT squad launched an invasion on Shin's house, firing relentlessly at Shishigami. Tragically, both Shin and her grandmother are caught in the crossfire and lose their lives. In a desperate act, Shishigami uses his powers to grab their lifeless bodies and takes them to the skies. Utilizing his healing abilities, he manages to restore them back to life, showcasing the extent of his extraordinary powers. Meanwhile, Inuyashiki confides in Naoyuki about his strained relationship with his daughter, Mary Inuyashiki. Together, they practice and hone Inuyashiki's powers, working on mastering control and understanding the scope of his abilities. Unbeknownst to them, Mary secretly follows them to a hospital where she witnesses her father performing miraculous healings. The discovery leaves her astonished and raises questions about her father's true identity. Later, during a family gathering, Mary reveals her desire to pursue a career in manga rather than attending college. Surprisingly, Inuyashiki wholeheartedly supports her decision, demonstrating his unwavering support for his daughter's dreams and aspirations. Meanwhile, Shishigami launches a brutal assault on the Gakokyuji police station, mercilessly taking down every officer except one. As he makes his escape, he becomes the target of a sniper's bullet and is fired upon by a police assault team. Though he is injured and rendered unconscious, Shishigami's self-defense mechanism kicks in, lifting him off the ground and unleashing a devastating rocket attack. The assault team and surrounding police are wiped out in a fierce and explosive encounter. The Inuyashiki family gathered around the television, watching the news coverage of Shishigami's attack on Gakokyuji police station. Suddenly, to the shock of everyone, Shishigami interrupts the broadcast on all television stations, announcing his declaration of war on the entire country. He chillingly vows to exterminate the entire population of 120 million people. Shishigami wastes no time in carrying out his threat, as he begins killing people indiscriminately in the streets of Shinjuku. Panic ensues as the city descends into chaos and terror. To further amplify his message, Shishigami contacts a television presenter and ruthlessly murders him while the broadcast is airing live. Naoyuki, realizing that Shishigami is using smartphones as his lethal weapon, takes advantage of his connection to Inuyashiki and issues a public warning, urging people to stay away from their smartphones to avoid becoming victims. The revelation of Shishigami's method puts the public on high alert. Shishigami, however, becomes aware that Naoyuki is actively working against him and trying to undermine his plans. This realization further intensifies the conflict between the former friends turned adversaries. Unfazed by the growing opposition, Shishigami continues his reign of terror. He employs a new method of killing, targeting people through television screens, and openly threatens to take the lives of 1,000 people every day. In a heart-wrenching moment, Shin confronts Shishigami, refusing his offer to take her and her grandmother away. Instead, she pleads with him to stop the senseless killing, appealing to his humanity. The next day, Shishigami takes his violence to an unimaginable level by crashing an in-flight passenger airplane into the heart of the city, further escalating the catastrophic situation. Shishigami crashed multiple passenger airplanes into the heart of Tokyo, causing widespread chaos and devastation. However, Inuyashiki leaps into action, using his powers to save some of the planes by landing them safely in the bay. Amidst the chaos, Mary, Inuyashiki's daughter, becomes trapped in a burning building and reaches out to her father for help. Inuyashiki is about to rush to her aid when he is intercepted by Shishigami. The two confront each other, engaging in a poignant discussion about their origins. They realize that they were both present in the park when a mysterious explosion occurred, granting them their cyborg abilities. However, their paths diverged, with Inuyashiki embracing his role as a hero while Shishigami embraced his dark and destructive inclinations. The battle between Inuyashiki and Shishigami commences, with both showcasing their formidable powers and weapon systems. Their conflict is intense and evenly matched, with Inuyashiki determined to reach his daughter while Shishigami seeks to defeat his perceived nemesis. The clash between their comprehensive internal weapons creates a spectacle of destruction. Eventually, Inuyashiki manages to inflict damage on Shishigami, causing them both to plummet to the ground. Inuyashiki quickly recovers and rushes to his daughter's lifeless body, desperately attempting to revive her. Through his unwavering determination, Inuyashiki successfully resurrects Mary, a powerful testament to the depth of his abilities. With Mary revived, Inuyashiki shifts his attention to saving others who have lost their lives during Shishigami's devastating attack on the city and their subsequent battle. Meanwhile, two young women stumble upon the severely damaged body of Shishigami in a laneway and extend a helping hand, providing an unexpected twist in the narrative. Inuyashiki reveals his metamorphosed mechanical body to his family, unsure if he is merely a copy of his former self. However, as he recalls cherished memories from their honeymoon, it becomes clear that he retains all of his past experiences and emotions. His family accepts him unconditionally, embracing him for who he is now. Meanwhile, Shishigami pays a visit to his friend Naoyuki, hoping to reconnect as they did in the past. However, when Naoyuki contacts Inuyashiki, Shishigami realizes that his presence may cause more harm than good and departs. The Inuyashiki family spends precious time together, enjoying each other's company. However, news reports about an impending meteor heading toward Earth prompt Inuyashiki to take action. Determined to do whatever he can to prevent disaster, he ventures into space, attempting to destroy the meteor, but ultimately fails. It is at this critical moment that Shishigami appears, revealing the existence of a self-destruct button in Inuyashiki's mechanical body. Acknowledging that there are people on Earth whom he wants to save, including Naoyuki and Shin, Shishigami implores Inuyashiki to push the button, as he lacks the necessary limbs to do so himself. Inuyashiki relays Shishigami's request to Naoyuki, leading to an emotional moment that brings tears to Naoyuki's eyes. In a selfless act of compassion, Inuyashiki assists Shishigami in initiating the self-destruct sequence. However, their combined efforts prove insufficient, and Inuyashiki himself must self-detonate to fulfill the monumental task. Following these tragic events, the aftermath brings about moments of growth and resilience for the remaining characters.